Hello everyone, how are we doing? I hope we are all well. My name's Dan Clubb and I'm with you for our latest Redmen TV Liverpool news update. It is Friday, the 9th of June, and just a day on from the Reds confirming Alexis McAllister as a new Liverpool player. Here we go again. The Reds are being linked with many more midfielders, and the hottest link at the moment appears to be Nice midfielder Khephren Thuram, a name we've heard a lot over recent weeks and indeed a little bit later than that as well. And he's a name that keeps getting brought up. Paul Joyce mentioned him earlier this week. James Pearce has mentioned him in an article. And we're here to speak about him again because it is a deal that appears to be moving with pace. And as we know, Liverpool like to get their business done swiftly if they can, as seen by the Alexis McAllister deal. Thuram may very well be the next one in at the AXA. So please get your comments in. Let me know what you think about Khephren Thuram. Let me know how made up you are with Alexis McAllister as well. And also, who else should Liverpool be looking at? Because there's many names being linked with the Reds, of course. So yeah, let's get stuck into it. I am here to talk about Thuram predominantly because last night an exclusive report from Football Transfers claimed that Liverpool had agreed personal terms with the 22-year-old French midfielder. This comes from Jack Talbot, a man I've spoken to many times on this channel, including, I think it was back in January when I first spoke to Jack about Liverpool's interest in Thuram and indeed Manu Kone at the time. And there was interest. He brought the news story to our attention, and it was kind of like, oh yeah, Liverpool like them two players, like kind of whatever vibe to it. But like, we're in the summer now, and both of those names are being heavily linked with the Reds. So just on the details a little bit more, OGC Nice midfielder Khephren Thuram has verbally agreed to personal terms with Liverpool. Football Transfers can reveal. The Frenchman, who has been on Liverpool's radar since January, has been in advanced talks with the Premier League club over a proposed move, and now the two parties have agreed a deal in principle. Multiple sources tell us. So, yeah, what do you know about that? I think Thuram being keen to come to Liverpool should come as no huge surprise. Like, you know, despite us not being in Champions League football next season, the lure is still there, as has been seen again by Alexis McAllister deal. It should come as no shock that players, aspiring players and players who may appear sort of destined for greatness and players who you could argue deserve and should be in the Champions League, they still want to come to Liverpool. Like, we are Liverpool Football Club after all. So, yeah, tell me what you think about Thuram in the comments, and I'll start going through them now. Mike Andrew kicks us off on this one. He says that Khephren is a legit Jude replacement. You seem to have sent the comment early there, so I can't go through them. There we go. I've got the rest of it. He's an absolute beast. Yeah, he is an absolute beast. And every time you speak to anybody about Thuram, you can't take the elephant in the room, quite literally. His size is the elephant in the room, because you can't really go more than one sentence without somebody saying he's 6'4", by the way, and he's got boss feet for a big lad, because he does have his physical presence, his physical prowess can't be ignored. And I think it's something Liverpool lacked a lot last season. The Brentford game in particular is one I hark back to, about one where we just bullied. We were quite literally bullied out of the game. We conceded all three of our goals and set pieces. And yeah, we just need a little bit more physicality. It's something that Fabinho brought us a lot, but last season again he kind of fell off a cliff, and yeah, we struggled badly. Another comment there which I want to bring up, and it is Riku Sekiguchi. I'm doing it again. I'm bringing up the impossible surnames to pronounce. I do apologise profusely if I get that wrong. It's a difficult one for me. And what position does he play? Well, essentially, Riku, he plays as a defensive midfielder, but he's a lot more versatile than that. I want to show you his last season stats actually now while I'm on the topic. So he played 48 games last season for Nice, scored twice and provided 8 assists. And those numbers in general aren't exactly eye-catching. I suppose the assist numbers aren't bad, but you can see here that he's played as a defensive midfielder 17 times, as a more conventional midfielder 24 occasions, and he's even done a little role as a left winger and as a left midfielder. Now, 6'4", defensively strong, you know, bullies opposition players a lot of the time. To play left mid and left wing, even though it was only one occasion both times, shows you what he's got in his locker. Like, he's a technically very gifted footballer, as well as being an absolute unit and a giant. He can also play a lot as well, so he seems to tick a lot of boxes for what Liverpool are looking to do. So I'm really excited about this one. It's a deal that, as I say, I've spoken about since way back in January. I actually spoke to Jack Talbot himself. I've actually spoken to Jack this week, as the show is coming out a little bit later today as well, to get a bit more on the deal. But is a name that the surname rings a bell because of his dad, Lillian, obviously. Like, that's a well-known surname in the footballing game. But in terms of Khephren himself, only 22, played all his football in France. Not a footballer that I know loads about, but as the days and the weeks go by and they have more conversations, you see more footage, etc., you do start to learn. And the overriding sense of this is he's a lot more than just a defensive midfield destroyer. He has a lot going on to his game. And it's something Alonso picks up on actually in the comments here, and I want to bring that up because he says he's 6'4", very technically good, and a box-to-box engine, potential to be good in multiple positions. And that final point is a really, really important one for me on this, because we all know Liverpool's midfield was a catastrophe at times last season. And we all know we need 2 at least, probably 3 options. But if one of those options can be someone like Thuram, who can play as one of the advanced 8s and in the 6, or perhaps even a double pivot, it just makes a whole world of sense. Now, fee-wise, I've seen a lot of ranging figures. I know Jack was of the opinion it might be around the 50 million mark. I've seen a lot less than that as well, sort of today. And as I said earlier, this is a name that Paul Joyce mentioned in his report about Alexis McAllister earlier this week. And if Paul Joyce is mentioning a name in the report, there's a good chance Liverpool are indeed keen on that footballer. So for me, it makes a lot of sense that Liverpool would be in the market for this player. Bring some more comments up now as we go along. Lee Baker said he was such a big Vieira fan, he bossed the Prem for a few years, and he genuinely thinks Thuram can grow into a similar player in the Prem. Buzzing is an understatement if we get him with Mac 10 this early. Yeah, absolutely echo those thoughts, mate. I really do. He has that stature and that profile of a Patrick Vieira. Now, they're obviously huge boots to fill. The fact that he's French helps in that comparison as well, of course. But in terms of getting business done early, yeah, I completely agree. Jurgen Klopp has always wanted his business done early. I think it's like the 4th or the 8th of July, perhaps. I've got those 2 dates in my head for when we return for pre-season. He would love to have his entire squad settled. In terms of outgoings, that might be easier said than done. There might be a couple of players, maybe a Nat Phillips, sort of looking to make their way out of the club still by then. But in terms of incomings, I'm sure he'd love to have 3 or 4 midfielders through the door, maybe a new centre-back, perhaps a new attacker, who knows, and have everything all calm so they can just go about our pre-season business and go from there. That would make a lot of sense. Steve Min, wrong comment, sorry, 1 second. Steve Min raises a point. Great signing for us, hopefully Kone as well. Yeah, obviously Thuram isn't through the door just yet, but the noise is getting increasingly loud, I think it's fair to say. Like I say, a number of reliable reporters now suggesting Liverpool are indeed keen. I spoke to Neil Jones yesterday on our Journal Insight show. He said he wouldn't be surprised if Liverpool do go hard for Khephren Thuram. He also mentioned Manu Kone in the same breath. He actually suggested Liverpool may only go for one of them. Whether that's because they're similar in terms of style, I'm not sure. Whether that's because Liverpool have got another iron in the fire somewhere else. For me, if it was going to be one of them, it would be Khephren Thuram. Again, just from the conversations I've been having. Last week, I spoke to the brilliant Football Town scout. If anyone who's on Twitter will definitely know him. Jacek Kulig. He is, if you need to know something about a young footballer, he is the man to go to, absolutely. And he told me that Khephren Thuram, despite never playing in the Premier League, was born to play in the Premier League, and that'll do for me in terms of an endorsement. That will absolutely do for me. Rexma says, do you think Thuram will play mostly as a central defensive midfielder or central midfielder at Liverpool? Interesting one. I think we've seen already he has the skill set to play as a few different positions. And I think Fabinho's drop-off last season would suggest we do need cover as a DM. Now, Stefan Bajcetic's emergence might fill that void. I think he could do both, quite frankly. I just think he could do both. And yeah, I think we need options to do both. For me, Thuram will probably play predominantly as an 8, probably the right side of 8, because he is a little bit more than a playmaker than a destroyer, although he can do both, like I say. But he will also be able to fill in for Fabinho as and when required. If anything last season is to go by, then it might be quite often. Neil O'Callaghan sends us a €10 super chat. Massively appreciated, Neil. However, you do say he's still FSG out, but they are doing well if they manage this signing, I assume, Thuram. But they still need another midfielder and a right-sided centre-back and maybe a left-back. If this is not done, we will fall short once again. I agree with you for the most part in that, and I think everyone would. I think everyone knows and would, like I say, be in agreement that we need those players that you're mentioning there. I'd love Thuram, I really would, as an individual. I think numbers-wise, we definitely need a new centre-back. I think a lot of people are suggesting it'd be a right-sided one or a left-sided one, perhaps with Virgil van Dijk, stroke Joe Gomez, filling the void of the other one when one is absent. I think we're all hoping that Konate can put his injury issues to one side, because if he stays fit for the majority, him in that right-sided centre-back role when Trent vacates into midfield just makes so much sense. Like, Konate is the perfect fit for that. I actually still believe Joe Gomez could do that, maybe foolishly, because Joe Gomez's form doesn't suggest he could do a lot right now in Liverpool shirt, if we're going to be brutally honest about it. However, as a player, as his attributes, I think Joe Gomez is the perfect understudy to either him or Konate. So out of the players you've mentioned there, Neil, or the positions rather, I would be more inclined to go and get the left-sided centre-back, because we don't have a natural fit there. Andy Robertson's done a good job of it, actually, towards the back end of the season when he was acquired. I don't think he's the perfect man for that role. If we're going to go and challenge, as you suggest there, go and challenge on sort of all four fronts again, including the Europa League, of course, next season, I do think we need someone, a left-footed centre-back, essentially. That doesn't mean Andy Robertson suddenly cast aside and he can go, you know, we can sell him or whatever. Andy Robertson still has a huge role to play at Liverpool Football Club, because there'll be times whereby we do go back to the 4-3-3. We need some fluidity in our formation and what we're going to do. Keeping Robertson would suggest that we can still do that. But to your point, I think if we go and get a left-footed centre-back, perhaps Virgil can play in the middle of whoever that person is, and Konate stroke Joe Gomez, perhaps stroke Joel Matip. We'll see what happens with him, of course. Yeah, let's go through some more of your comments. Thank you very much, by the way, Neil. I'm not FSG out, but I do agree with what you were saying. Cop Connection says, get Thuram in now. He is one of those, we mentioned Vieira again, and Yaya Toure type players who come around once in each decade. If moulded correctly, as we would expect by Klopp, we would have a player on our hands. Yeah, absolutely agree with all that as well, mate, because, again, I've heard nothing but good things about Khephren Thuram, quite frankly. I'm not going to sit here and claim I've seen him a million times, because I haven't. He's played a good amount of football in France. He's been really impressive in France. What I've seen, what little I have seen and what I've heard, he seems to tick a lot of boxes for Liverpool. He really does. His versatility's there, the age profile's there, his ability is certainly there. And as you say, you know, if he can be anything like Vieira and Yaya Toure, then we're on to a good one, aren't we? Just on the central defender point, Craig Flynn says Guardiola will be perfect. Yeah, he will be perfect. I absolutely agree with that. I think for this summer, given how much we need to do in the midfield, and don't like having to make these choices or say these things, but I think Guardiola's going to be out of our price range. I really do. Just because Leipzig are going to be looking at 100 million. And by the way, Leipzig is still desperate for Fabio Carvalho, it looks like. So who knows? You know, we'll give you Carvalho, you knock 70 million off Guardiola's price, and we'll see. But yeah, I agree with you to the point, Craig. Guardiola is the absolute ideal candidate to come in and play that left-sided centre-back role, because, again, someone who can go and play left-back if needed. Where that leaves Kostas Tsimikas is a conversation in itself. I'm not quite sure, but we will see. Adam Coburn says, big fan of Castagna at Leicester. He will be cheap. He will be cheap, obviously recently relegated Leicester. And I think someone who can play both sides as a fullback. I don't think we need a fullback. I think Andy Robertson and Trent are absolutely 100% fine as our fullback options. I think we need an actual centre-back, quite frankly. John Sommers brings another one to the conversation. I will move back to the midfielder. We've gone off course a little here. It's my fault. John Sommers says, Ndicka on a free, good quality player. Yeah, I think if you was to get one on a free, John, like Ndicka, who's been recently released by Eintracht Frankfurt, or didn't choose to sign a contract, I should say, really. I think he would make loads of sense, because then you can go and buy another one, to the point you can get Ndicka plus the extra centre-back that you may well need further down the line. Plus it frees up room in the budget for another high-quality statement midfielder. But then again, Alexis McAllister for 35 million keeps some money in that budget, I would imagine, as well, because that is extraordinary business. Charles Leica says Pavard or Kimmich will be a huge statement. Yeah, agree with that. Absolutely agree with that. And Pavard would make a lot of sense for what we're trying to do. Daniel Buttery says, Conor Bradley, would he be strong enough to be a right back? What about Calvin Ramsey? I think one of them will go out on loan. Again, I spoke to Neil Jones yesterday about the loan market, what Liverpool might look to do. I think it might be a bit of a competition between those two in pre-season, to be honest, about who can impress enough to stick around, because we're not going to need two backup right backs, I think it's fair to say, plus Joe Gomez into the mix as well. So I think one of Bradley or Ramsey probably head out on loan. Conor Bradley had a brilliant season on loan at Bolton. They've just gone. He won all the awards at their awards night. And maybe he needs a loan in the Championship. And I imagine we're going to back Calvin Ramsey. I wouldn't be surprised if Bradley was the one to go and Ramsey stick around. Yeah. Ben Paul says, what do you think about Kone being injured? Do you mean injured now or his injury record? Please let me know. And while you do, and Amway Okelo, again, I apologise. Who would you rather, Kone or Thuram? Difficult one for me to answer because, again, I haven't seen their entire careers. But the conversations I've had, which is now lots of them with lots of different people who know far more than I do, I would be Thuram on that one. Now, he's going to be more expensive, but just based on what I've heard, what I've seen, the stature of the two players, I just think Thuram is tailor-made for this Liverpool side. Where we're at right now and what we need moving forwards, I think Thuram is absolutely tailor-made for this Liverpool side. And in terms of reports and how advanced they seem to be, Thuram appears to be the closest, in inverted commas, to become a Liverpool player as well, because there's definitely interest in both. But again, football transfers are reporting that Liverpool have agreed terms with Khephren Thuram. Now, there's still a long way to go with that deal because Liverpool need to agree terms with Nice, who, of course, are owned by Jim Ratcliffe, who could be about to take over Manchester United. Moving parts all over the place there. But there's a long way to go in that deal yet. But if Liverpool can get Khephren Thuram through the door quickly, I'll be made up. Now, I've got to say, you know it's transfer time. And even though the window doesn't open, I think, for 6 days yet, maybe 5 days. 5 days, my maths is off there. Transfer window doesn't open for 5 days. However, you know it's time for transfers when Liverpool Twitter accounts start tracking flights. And LFC Transfer Room did exactly that yesterday. They found a flight from Nice to Blackpool. It's 8 o'clock this morning was his scheduled departure. Now, I don't know quite. His scheduled arrival time was 9:27, and we're now at, well, it's 1:45 in the UK. So if it was Khephren Thuram, he should be well and truly in Blackpool by now, and he should be well and truly going through the procedures of becoming a Red. We can all hope, can't we? But yeah, we know it's transfer time when people start tracking flights of footballers. Yeah, let's hope anyway. I wanted to bring one more interesting note to the party on Khephren Thuram, and it comes from FBref, who's my website I use a hell of a lot just to compare footballers, and some of the names who Khephren Thuram is similar to. Now, it's not foolproof in as much as it's not absolutely 100% accurate. It's based on the data over the last 365 days, and there are a few interesting names among the 10 that he compares most to. One of them is Gavi from Barcelona, of course, who we know well and we're linked to for a period of time. Another one is Kieran Dewsbury-Hall at Leicester, who is an interesting name, you know, tough tackling. Actually had a decent season, but perhaps the two most interesting names amongst this. In fact, there's three. Henrik Mkhitaryan, just because he's so attacking. And if Khephren Thuram's likened to him in any sense, it suggests that there's a lot more to his game than just defending. And Gisa from Napoli, formerly of Fulham, of course, who had an amazing season for Napoli and absolutely ran rings round us in Naples. And also Nicolo Barea, who's a player that we all admire, I think it's fair to say, and we're heavily linked with as well. So, yeah, some interesting names in there. It just shows you how versatile he is. Ben Paul does return to tell me about Kone. Got a hip injury. I mean, I'm not going to say avoid at all costs because it might be something or nothing. It might be very small. I think I'm right in saying both of them have pretty good injury records on the whole. I feel like Thuram's might be slightly better. I can check Thuram's as I'm speaking, actually, on that note. And while I'm doing that, I just wanted to tell you all, if you haven't already seen, that Naby Keita has joined Werder Bremen. He has returned to the Bundesliga where he made a brilliant name for himself before joining Liverpool, and he has returned. If Tom can bring the Twitter up, I'll just show you the confirmation of that. Naby Keita has returned to Werder Bremen. There he is, very smiley, signing his forms, medical already completed, and to the shock of millions passed. But no, I won't say too much negative about Naby Keita. Good luck to him. I genuinely wish him all the best. I genuinely do. Hope it goes really well. Liverpool need to replace our midfield, and that's why we're sat here talking about Khephren Thuram. And on that note, I did just check Khephren Thuram's injury record, and if Tom, if you could bring that up again for me, mate, because it's not bad. Because Khephren Thuram's injury history currently reads no entries available. That'll do for me. That'll do for me. Yeah, no entries available. If he can continue that for what is hopefully his Liverpool career, then that'll do. I want to bring up a comment there. I'll come back to the comments. Robert California, is that the one from The Office? I hope so. If so, you're a very fascinating man. Dan looks like Joe Goldberg. I don't know who Joe Goldberg is. I apologise for that, but I don't know who he is. One time I'm done on the show, I'll check him and see what he looks like. If he's really horrible, then I'll take offence. But I'll reserve judgment for the moment. What do you think of Danny Olmo? Brilliant player. Not one Liverpool are necessarily linked with just yet, I don't think. I'll bring that comment up just there, Spirit, without comment. If I can find it. It's running away from me. Rapidly running away from me. There we go. Got it now. Yeah, not going to comment on that. A few more comments before we come back full circle. The Dogs Bollards, like that name. Thuram is solid, yeah. He's solid in every sense of the word, quite frankly, mate. 6'4", built like a brick, outside house, never been injured. You know, I mean, Liverpool could easily fix that when he signs for us. If he signs for us, we could quickly fix his never been injured problem. Don't worry about that. We've got a track record of doing that. But yeah, I think he is a no-brainer for us at this point, quite frankly. I really do. Kone, fine. You know, if he comes in as well, alongside as boss. But I've seen a couple of people in the chat suggesting or asking which one I'd prefer. Again, I fall down on Thuram when it comes to that. And Jasper, I want to bring that comment up there. Jasper DeBell says, I think Matty Cash would be perfect for us at right back. And see, this Trent in midfield thing, I get it. Of course, I fully get it. But the beauty of Trent towards the back end of the season wasn't the fact he was playing in midfield. It was the fact he was doing both. So I just let him carry on doing both. The system is what made us better, not necessarily just Trent being in midfield. Like, don't get me wrong, that obviously helped. Like, that goes without saying. His incredible range of passing helped us from midfield. But yeah, I think him being a right back and then he moved into midfield and making that 4 as a box was what was so impressive, personally. Yeah, I've got another comment there. I think it's Theo SG. Theo SG asked, do Liverpool really want Thuram and Kone, or is it just one of them? No, I think we do. I think we do. Normally by now, somebody has poured cold water on these sort of rumours and links if they're not legitimate. And as I said earlier, I apologise if you've been here since the start, but Paul Joyce doubled down on Liverpool's admiration for Khephren Thuram earlier this week. He also mentioned, I think it was Gravenberch and Romeo Lavia in the same breath, but he definitely said that Liverpool were, I think it was the word looking. Now, I apologise profusely if I got that wrong. I think looking at Khephren Thuram. And as I said, if somebody like Paul Joyce is going to say that, then yeah, that's fine by me, quite frankly. Jason Yari with the hard-hitting questions. Beatles or the Lars? It's the Beatles. Like, the Lars sound happy days, but it's the Beatles. It's absolutely, they're just different gravy, aren't they, quite frankly? And it's funny, you know, like, because every now and then, I don't forget who the Beatles are, but I won't listen to the Beatles for a while. And then someone will mention them, and they'll spend like the next 2 days listening to like everything, their entire back catalogue. So now you've said that, that's pretty much me now for the entire weekend. So, and I've got a long drive tomorrow. I'm driving up to Blackpool tomorrow, not to see Khephren Thuram, but to play cricket. So I appreciate that, because that will definitely be, maybe the White Album or something will be getting a good old play on my hour-and-a-half drive up. Anyway, I'll stop talking about myself and start talking about football again. That's far more important. I will start to wrap up. A few more comments before I do. Doing both will burn Trent out. Zinni and Cancelo found it difficult. Yeah, I assume Angel 1968, Abel. I assume you mean going into midfield for Trent. I agree with you, actually, and I don't think we'll ask him to do both all season. In an ideal world, you'd have somebody else who could do both. I'm not quite sure who that is right now, because our other right backs are proper right backs in terms of, I mean, Conor Bradley played very advanced for Bolton, so maybe he could. Calvin Ramsey's never done it to my knowledge, so he can't do it. Maybe you could convert someone like a Stefan Bajcetic to be able to do it as well, to be able to drop into right back. He'd actually find it harder doing the other way. Trent goes from right back to midfield. You'd be asking Bajcetic to go from midfield to right back. Who knows? That might be something we can tinker with in pre-season. But I absolutely understand and agree with your point. To do that all year will be incredibly, incredibly difficult. So maybe he doesn't. A, maybe somebody else does it, and B, maybe we do go to a 4-3-3 on occasions as well. Having flexibility in our formation can only be a good thing. Let's be honest about it. Last couple of comments now before I do wrap up. Massively appreciate you getting involved, by the way, everyone. It is very, very helpful. Intellectual honesty, like that name. Doesn't Thuram and McAllister both play a bit more advanced as Nate? And on the left, we need a defensive midfielder, RCM, to cover Trent. Thuram can do it all, quite frankly. I think Thuram, Fabinho was a right back at Monaco, by the way, Lee. Yeah, great shout. Thuram can do it all. He can play defensive midfield, he can play on the left-hand side, the right-hand side, more of a conventional 8, he can do everything. So, yeah, I would have no concern on that. That's why he's such an ideal option for us, because of his versatility. Because you're right, we do need different options in there. We definitely need the right size 8. Harvey Elliott's brilliant. I think he's going to be a great player. Jordan Henderson needs to go into James Milner role in terms of his minutes now. So, yeah, having versatile options such as Thuram just makes so much sense to me. Yeah, I want to bring up that comment before we go. Lee, call it, was it? No, you just give me eyes. Yeah, eyes are sound. I agree. How many players you think we will sign after McAllister? Hopefully 3 more for me. 2 more midfielders and a central defender. Give me that, FSG/Liverpool/Jörg Schmadtke. I will sleep easy for the remainder of the summer. That's fine by me. Final one before we go then. John Sommers. Hi, Dan. Do you think Hendo could play a centre-half if needed? God, I didn't read that before I looked at it. He did it in a fashion during COVID when we had no centre-halves. They were actually texting me at the time to see if I'll come and have a game, so we really were struggling. Yeah, he could, but the Merseyside derby, when he did his hamstring after like 15 minutes doing it, I don't want to see it, to be honest with you. We are scraping the barrel badly. If we're in a position next season where Jordan Henderson needs to play centre-back, who, by the way, is his 12th year anniversary as a Red today, should just mention, then something's gone drastically wrong. Anyway, just want to come full circle and tell you why I'm here, why I'm talking to you. It's because Liverpool have reportedly agreed terms with Nice midfielder Khephren Thuram. This comes from Football Transfers via Jack Talbot, somebody I've spoken to a hell of a lot, including this week. That show will be out on Redmen Plus later on today at 4 o'clock, which is the ideal segue for me to tell you all that if you head over to Redmen Plus, and you haven't already, by the way, if you sign up as a Club Captain yearly subscriber and use the code MAC10, that's MAC10, that's right, we are those guys, you will get Club Captain yearly subscription for half price. That's a year's worth of Boss content, including the upcoming Roberto Firmino documentary, including all the amazing shows that we do. You'll get that for half price, which is just 25 quid. And I mean, that's a bargain. We've covered Alexis McAllister like you won't believe over the past week. We've spoken to dozens of people about him, from far and wide, from Argentina to Brighton, etc., etc. We've got it covered. And if Liverpool sign Khephren Thuram, I promise you now, we'll do exactly the same. Exactly the same. Anyway, once again, thank you very much. I'm just checking the comments while I'm talking, just to make sure I've not missed anything important. Thank you very much for commenting. Thank you very much for watching. Thank you very much for listening. I will see you all again soon. Take it easy.
Yeah, everyone, hope you enjoyed that show. Do you want to get your hands on some amazing Liverpool merchandise? Well, if you become a Redmen Plus Club legend on a yearly subscription, we'll instantly send you 2 merch codes to get you 2 pieces of merchandise from redmenmerch.com. T-shirts are amazing. Go and get yourselves one. Simply become a Redmen Plus Club legend on a yearly subscription, and that code will be in your inbox very, very shortly.